Yeah, it was really which is
Steve. Does Steve know? Do you think Steve knows he's reading? Oh, wow.
okay. All right. As long as you're comfortable. We were.
Steve, you're reading, right? Okay, he's good.
Just to see. Okay. So what's it was? We'd like to.
Good afternoon, everyone in the gallery and council. I welcome you to the council meeting for the town of Collingwood on Monday, April 15, 2024. This is going to be a long day. 24, it's 24. Okay. And we're going to start by Councillor Perry reading the land acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. For more than 15,000 years, the First Nations walked upon and cared for the lands we now call home. Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe, and many others who were families, friends, and communities the way we are today. The town of Collingwood acknowledges the Lake Simcoe-Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818 and the relationship it establishes with the original inhabitants of Turtle Island. We acknowledge the reality of our shared history and the current contributions of Indigenous people within our community. We seek to continue empowering expressions of pride amongst all of the diverse stakeholders in this area. We seek to do better and to continue to recognize, learn, and to grow in friendship and community, nation to nation.
For a motion to adopt the agenda. There's two amendments to the agenda, and I'll just read in what I have before me. That the content of the council agenda for April 15, 2024 be adopted as amended. Two amendments. One, the addition of items 6 and 7 related to the water treatment plant expansion. And secondly, the removal of the need for the in-camera portion of the meeting, again, with respect to the water treatment plant. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Ring, seconded by Councillor Potts. Any comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest today? If you find yourself in that position during the meeting, please declare at that time. So I'm pleased now to turn this matter over to our Deputy Clerk, Dahl, because this is the day we receive our annual reports from our volunteer boards and advisory committees. So our Deputy Clerk will introduce this matter and tell us what's going to be happening. And then as each presenter finishes, I'll introduce the next one. And I'm happy to say there are 8 advisory committees and other groups that are going to be reporting today. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin and Council. And I'd just like to thank everyone for attending today. This is an amazing turnout, and I just want to extend my gratitude for your volunteership with our committees and boards and your dedication and commitment you have to this community. In recognition of National Volunteer Week and in accordance with the Town of Collingwood's community-based strategic plan, we are here today to present the goals and accomplishments of our various boards and committees established by Council for 2023 and 24. The transparency and accountability of local government goal in our strategic plan seeks to enhance public trust by providing public annual reports to Council from our committees and boards, including their priorities of next year and accomplishments related to the town's strategic plan. New to this report this year is the inclusion of the goals and priorities identified by the committees and boards tied to our current and potential future town programs and services in which these relate to public interaction. This will be outlined in the report, and more synchronies will be identified through 2024, and you'll see it more pronounced in our 2025 report to Council. First off, I'd like to, if you could bring the presentation up, Jenny. I think we're on slide 3. So the committees that we have here today are our Accessibility Advisory Committee, our Collingwood Heritage Committee, our Museum Advisory Committee, our Trails and Active Transportation Advisory Committee, our downtown Collingwood BIA Board of Management, the Collingwood Public Library Board, and our Committee of Adjustment Property Standards Appeal Committee, and our Affordable Housing Task Force. Our first committee to present their accomplishments and goals for 2024 is our Accessibility Advisory Committee. I have Jennifer Parker and Leslie Bolt here to present on their behalf.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to present today to you. I have the honor as the staff resource to work with the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and as was introduced, we have Leslie, our chair. I'm also fortunate to have many members of our Accessibility Advisory Committee here today. We have Catherine Bloomfield and Casey Morrison, and also have the privilege of working with other members, including Lana Roma, a new member on the committee, Gina Northcott, and Hannah Keeney. Amazing committee, fantastic to work with. We meet on a monthly basis, and we do this as our legislative responsibility. So with the Accessibility Advisory Committee is guided by the AODA, and we work within the multi-year strategic plan. We decided that we would do this presentation as a joint effort, so between myself and Leslie, so we're going to bounce back and forth from slide to slide. I wanted to just affirm the committee's commitment in keeping to building an accessibility committee or community, recognizing that when you build an accessible community, you build a community for all. And there you go. Do you want to move on to, so the committee created these, the list of accomplishments and goals, and we'll go through that list. Over to you.
Looking back last year, we were very busy. And some of the key goals that we have to articulate this morning and share with this group is the town webpage and web content was thoroughly reviewed and brought up to the accessibility requirements. And we supported the implementation of the accessible beach mat over at Sunset Point. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, but it's a very thorough installment and has been embraced by the people who use it. And anyway, that was very, very iconic thing, and it seems to be quite enjoyed. So if you haven't, take your family down there and enjoy it when the weather is right. And if the trend continues, you could be soon, if we follow what's happening out there today. And we have initiated an introduction of a new universal accessibility icon.
Yeah, and on the previous slide, you would have noticed that one of the reasons or thinkings behind the Accessibility Advisory Committee was to build an icon to identify that disabilities can be both visible and invisible. And a large proportion of our population faces issues or incurs disabilities. And so we wanted to identify the number of people impacted, and that it's not only physical disabilities, which you see in your traditional icon or the icon that's universal.
Exactly. So it's sort of migrated from the traditional wheelchair, or wheels as I call them, but I'm emigrated towards that, just speaking to what Jennifer has said about just there's visible disabilities and other kinds of impairments that you can see. Some are not even visible. Anyway, so you see that new icon that's taken all that into consideration. We have a National Accessibility Awareness Day event, flag raising.
So these were one of the initiatives that we delivered last year, and we'll also have National Accessibility Awareness Week coming at the end of May and beginning of June. So stay tuned. That's on our list of goals for the year as well.
Right.
So a really important time. One of the key mandates of the committee is to build awareness and knowledge across the community, and we see that week as particularly important.
True. Yep. What we were looking at doing, what we looked at doing last year, rather, is there was a service disruption notification process that when there was like a system downloaded, obviously we're all impaired with that, but if you rely on the system to work devices so you can see, or sometimes respiratory. So we looked at looking at that service disruption process and brought it up to speed, what we thought was much improved.
Yeah, this was a great collaboration with the communications department, ensuring, again, a principle that's identified within the AODA, that we're responsible for letting the public know when we have a service disruption. So developing a clear policy and procedure around that. And the Accessibility Advisory Committee played a key role in helping inform that, recognizing just how disruptive that can be when you have barriers that you're trying to move around to access services and programs.
We provided comments to the Affordable Housing Master Plan. And assisted in the delivery of communicating awareness and actively champion accessibility on those. And we continue to work with the other accessibility advisory committee boards and boards.
Yeah, so the committee is really embracing the idea of collaboration. We see that accessibility is everyone's responsibility. And in consequence, the important work of meeting with other boards, having opportunities such as this, working with staff on various projects and implementing those. And you'll see many of these different goals also manifesting itself in our, or the accomplishments manifesting itself into the goals and priorities. So again, this important work around consultation with staff and various boards and committees.
And looking ahead to our goals and priorities, we're going to consult on and support access to transportation, inclusive of on-demand, Transit Plus, and accessible taxi service. And that continues to be a priority and worked on. It's a challenge and extraordinarily expensive, but we're proceeding still and continue to do some testing. And it's my personal hope, and I really believe that with the team on it, we'll have some decent progress as the year continues.
So the Accessibility Advisory Committee has very much focused in on transportation and ensuring access to transportation. We recognize that there's a variety of different forms of transportation available, and you would have heard from members of the committee in various forms. I believe Casey and Catherine have both spoken to transportation and the importance that is in terms of making things part of, Casey's smiling back there because he's agreeing in terms of the importance here, but how important it is to have that service available to them. And so with this work too, we're back and forth, you notice that we had the accessible Collingwood logo. We're really trying to build that into features within our facility spaces, work with our businesses in the community to highlight the importance of creating accessible places. And again, this is part of the AODA's goal of reaching an accessible community, Ontario province, in 2025. And so through that, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
We wanted to review some major town projects for accessibility, including new facilities and programs and services, and develop a new measurable accessibility awareness program for decision makers.
And so as we're moving forward into 2025, to recognize the amazing work that's happening in our corporation itself, within the town and within local businesses. And that's another way of getting that accessible Collingwood logo out there. And part of that includes collaborating with organizations. So really feeling happy that we have the opportunity to work with organizations like Breaking Down Barriers and E3 to continue with this work and build this culture of accessibility, not only within the town, within our own facilities, but also in and around the communities. And we'll continue to work on or work with staff on building accessible web page and meeting that compliance standard for our accessible documents, and then collaborating with our advisory committees and other boards within. And our last was that we were working on our strategic plan. So we're about to enter a new phase of strategic planning. Our current plan ends in 2025, so we'll have to put forward a 2025 to 2030 accessibility plan. And that's it for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Leslie and Jennifer, and your committee, and thanks for those who attended and for all your hard work. It's so appreciated.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
We're next going to hear from the Collingwood Heritage Committee, and Kathy DeRuiter, who's the committee co-chair, will be doing the presentation.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you again. I'm not going to go into each and every one of our points. I think you've all seen them quite a bit. So I'm going to highlight a couple of things, though. We're very happy that we have continued to do designations, and then there's another one coming in the upcoming year. We're very happy to have provided the downtown and look up heritage walking tours, updated version. And thank you very much to Margie Moy. If you see her trotting around town with a box full of brochures, she's stocking them up all over town, and we very much appreciate that. She's working on the next one now. The other thing I wanted to highlight was that in April, we had a meeting or a workshop, I guess you'd say, on wood windows. I know some of you were able to attend that. And it was very well received. It was in our partnership with the ACO Collingwood branch, and it was very well received. So we're looking, and we also did another online virtual public education specifically intended for realtors. We felt that this is a segment of the businesses that we needed to really focus on so that they can advise their potential clients when they are talking about selling or buying a heritage home, and things that they needed to be aware of. And that was well received as well. So for 2024, we've got a few things on board. We're hosting another workshop, and it's going to be for heritage property owners, and hopefully to talk about some of the programs, the grant programs, and how they go about getting a heritage permit, and sort of basics, because there's always movement in the real estate market, and so there's different new owners that haven't been exposed to some of the information before, and so this is what we're going to target for that. That's coming up at the end of May, and excuse me, I'll make sure that you all get an invitation as well. We continue to work with the museum and get information for the walking tours, a lot of collaboration there. And on the list, it doesn't talk about doors open, but one of our vice chair, David Jeffries, he's very much interested in that. And he is hoping that we can revive it. Currently, the Simcoe County is doing one, but it seems like that they, in the past, have had their resources spread too far apart to be able to give a good coverage to Collingwood. So we're hoping that in the future, as we had back in the 2000s, 2005, I think, through 9, we had a Collingwood-centered doors open. So we're working towards that. Whether it'll happen or not remains to be seen. But I guess the most thing I wanted to talk to you about today is emergency preparedness. Now, I know you're going to go, oh, we've heard this before. Is she ever going to give up on it? But I've done some more research this time, and I think I can say it more concisely, make sure that you're fully informed. I guess the reason I keep talking about this emergency preparedness is goes back to my Girl Guide background, be prepared. First of all, emergency preparedness for heritage buildings is not a new idea. There are many places in the world and in Ontario that who have current programs. Two examples are Hamilton and Kitchener. Some common misconceptions that a plan will actually prevent an emergency. No, it's not going to prevent an emergency. Unfortunately, emergencies come in a multitude of forms, and many were powerless to prevent. This also does not suggest that first responders would do their job any differently because it was a heritage building during the emergency. The plan addresses only mitigation after the emergency has been dealt with, and it's a safe environment for other people to be around. This plan addresses only the emergency does not have to be widespread, such as a catastrophic event damaging many buildings. It can be a car jumping a curb and crashing into a building. However, it would only come into play if the CBO issued an unsafe building order. The plan would also cover the individual designated buildings as well as the Downtown Heritage Conservation Plan. A very interesting thesis is available, Godrich, a case study of conserving cultural heritage by K.A. Jonas, published in 2016. The thesis is very detailed. It's 160 pages, but I can send it to you if you like. It has some great information. It discusses 5 steps in a course of action after the notification of the building official of a threat to a building. And the 5 steps are, organized here. Ensure public health. Well, first that they would have a heritage emergency response team on site, which includes heritage staff, municipal heritage committee members, as well as Ontario Heritage Trust and Parks Canada staff. A structural engineer or contractor is also required on site. It should be chosen from a pre-qualified list. The heritage emergency response team should then assess the situation and develop a strategy of removal of the unsafe condition while minimizing damage to the heritage resource in a reasonable, cost-effective, and timely manner. That's a quote from the Hamilton plan. The required principles to be followed are 1, ensuring public health and safety, 2, minimize immediate short-term damage or to loss of the heritage resource. Ensure that the proposed intervention minimizes any threat to the long-term structural integrity and survival of the resource. 4, ensure that the scope and cost of any intervention is reasonable in relationship to the threat to the public health and safety presented by the situation. And 5, if required, recommend suitable artifacts for documentation and recovery from the site with permission of the owner, as well as an agreement with the owner or others to cover all protection, storage, and transportation costs. 6, ensuring any action is based on appropriate professional expert advice. So there is quite a extensive sort of template, I should say, for having one of these plans. It is interesting that the K.A. Jonas, that is the author of that thesis, is also she is now K.A. Jonas Galvin of Architectural Resources Associates, ARA, and her name is included in the, she is the Heritage Operations Manager for ARA, and it has been involved with and has been part of the heritage assessment for the Collingwood grain terminals. So she's familiar with Collingwood. There's been one meeting held about 2 years ago, including Justin Teakle, our planner, staff resource, and the CBO in regards to potential development of a plan for Collingwood. However, it was determined that staff time was not available for this task. CBO Hogg mentioned during the meeting that she was aware of a similar plan when she was employed by the City of Kitchener. So she already has some background in that concept. And I don't know if you have any questions for me, but hope these comments will help you fully understand the importance of emergency preparedness for heritage buildings. And I'll get off my soapbox now.
Oops. It's always good to have a little more education, and that's an important one. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Jennifer Belanger, who's the committee chair of the Museum Advisory Committee.
Hi, everyone. Thanks
Welcome.
for the opportunity today. And with apologies, in my other life, I'm a sessional instructor, so I'm going to read straight from the PowerPoint. So the committee's mandate is to help the museum in meeting its mission to be a relevant and engaging resource to Collingwood, the heritage and collective memory, and to make recommendations to the committee of the whole and to council. As part of the museum's funding, we receive funding from the Community Museum Operating Grant, or CMOG, and there are 10 standards that have to apply for that in the province of Ontario. And they include governance, finance, collections, exhibition, interpretation and education, research, conservation, physical plant, community, and human resources. So all of those needs need to be met for funding. All right, and our 2023 accomplishments, I do want to say thank you. We have 3 outgoing members that have completed their final meeting with us, and all of their hard work is reflected in these slides. And I do want to welcome, we have 3 new members that are starting just on Thursday. So welcome, Bob. All right, so our 2023 accomplishments are to make the museum as accessible and inclusive as possible. And we thank the other committee members or the other committees for their help in achieving that goal. We partner with community stakeholders. We've worked with the Accessibility Advisory Committee to create a 5-year accessibility plan for the museum. We continue to drive membership for the museum itself and to engage community members at the museum and in community events. We receive and review updated interpretation and education policies, again, to adhere to the standards for community museums and for funding, and to review and prioritize committee projects in the museum's master plan. We've also updated the museum's terms of reference this year, and we've increased the museum's virtual and media presence through the Stories from Another Day podcast, which currently has almost 6,000 listens, and a publication partnership with Escarpment magazine. For 2024, we're still working towards making the museum as accessible and inclusive as possible with our community partners. So we continue to partner with our stakeholders to advance diversity and inclusion at the museum itself, to drive membership and to engage community members at the museum and community events, and to continue to increase the virtual and media presence. So continue to work on the Stories from Another Day podcast and other community partnerships. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your hard work. And I'm glad to hear you're also pursuing increasing the membership, because that's an awesome thing.
Thank you. We are, in 2 years, we've grown by 55%. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Murray Knowles, who is the committee chair of our Trails and Active Transportation Advisory Committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for the opportunity. It's appreciated. While the mandate's up there, I'm going to be sort of trying to pick the highlights out of here today, as opposed to going through each individual item on the slide. But before I do anything with respect to Trails and Active Transportation, I always say we work very closely with both the Parks, Rec, and Culture staff and also the engineering staff. So anything that's here that says, you know, the advisory committee is an accomplishment or the advisory committee is a goal, it's a combined goal for all the people who are involved in active transportation. Can I get the next one, please? 2023 accomplishments. Again, I won't go through them all, just kind of highlight a couple. Certainly a big one for us is the Hen and Chickens Bridge. We got the tender out, tenders issued, it's been awarded, they're all set to go. To be perfectly honest, we were really hoping we could get the bridge snuck in last year towards the end of the year, but that did not happen. But it's all set to start now, I guess, on the 1st of July. So hopefully we can get that thing going for this year. The other one I would highlight, I guess, is the one at the bottom, which is the complete the revised Maple Street Quiet Street project. This is something new for the town. And if you've ever been down Maple Street now and you see the signage that says, it's not quite share the road, but single file, it says. And it has the sharrows in the middle of the road. So this is a different type of approach for the town. It's a shared operating space essentially for cyclists and for cars. And I'll mention this one a little bit later as we get into the goals for 2024. Next one, please. Some of the things that we did, which we normally do every year, we normally have a trails map, which we did do in 2023. We will not be doing one in 2024. There are enough copies of the existing 2023 map that we expect to last us all the way through 2024. And there haven't been any real, significant changes to the network that we feel the map is out of date. So we will not be doing one this year. We have been actively involved in communication through the Collingwood Connection, which unfortunately is no longer in existence. But we're also getting involved with the communications people on social media. And the one thing there, it said, plus the release of the cycling video. There are actually 4 cycling videos that were prepared, small vignette type of videos that promoted cycling and promote cycling for our local residents. But I think mainly meant to be from a tourist point of view, tourism point of view, to encourage people to come to Collingwood if they're interested in cycling. We have done some major contributions, I think, to both the 6th Street and the Peel Street redesign plans for the roads. And the one that is missing there, actually, we've also been involved in the Finley Drive traffic calming scenario. So this is an opportunity where I can give a shout out to the engineering team here. We are being involved in the design process at very early in the process now. And we don't do the design, obviously, but I think getting our input to the thing in as early as possible in the process is a good news story. And hopefully it will result in better, I'll call it complete streets type designs for the town. The last one we did actively participate and contribute to the official plan and also the community-based strategic plan update. So we've been actively involved in those as well. The next one, please. As we go into 2024, I'll again kind of pick the highlights out of here. There will be 4 of them as I go through them that I will highlight specifically because they tend to be tied together. And to try and do one without doing the other 3 will create potentially some confusion. So we want to make sure that we get all 4 of these done this year. The first one right at the top is going to be our signature project essentially this year, which is the Hens and Chickens Bridge. We not just only want to have the bridge completed, but we want to make sure that we can get our boardwalk building gang out there and do the repair and work necessary on the boardwalk on the island. And then we would also like to make sure we do a complete upgrade to the trail that leads to the bridge. This is a very popular trail for residents of the town. And it's a great place for tourists to go. You get a perfect view of the town, the harbor, the hills. I mean, it's just a nice place to be. We've unfortunately been without this particular trail for about 4 years now. So we're looking forward to seeing this thing finish this year. The next 2 that are there are 2 of the 4 that I want to highlight. We want to make sure we've got our hard surface trails identified, marked, painted as required. It falls into one of our key thrusts, which is visibility of the active transportation network. And it's something that we really need to get ourselves working on in 2024. The same thing for the next one down, which is some of the crossings of our multi-use pathways. If you go along a multi-use pathway and you cross a road, what we have there is a pedestrian crossing. And that's the lineage that's written on the pavement there. It's a pedestrian crossing. So technically speaking, every time you hit a street on one of your multi-use pathways and you're on a bicycle, you have to stop, get off your bike, walk it across the street, get on the bike, and then rinse and repeat when you hit the next street. And obviously that's not a very efficient way for us to do things, even when you have the green light or the okay to essentially go. So we really would like to get that improved and get crossroad markings on the road crossing so that you are, legally allowed to just keep on going on your bike. It will make the thing much, much more visible that the crossing is there. And the reason why we're so interested in that is we did have a couple of, I'll use the word incidents, where there was a disagreement between a car and a cyclist out in the west end of town. And part of the issue is that, the crossings there are really not that visible for, in this case, both the cases, or at least one case, not visible from the cyclist point of view, and certainly not visible from the vehicle driver's point of view. So we're very interested in those. Some of the other ones that are down there, I'll call them sort of things that we kind of do on an ongoing basis every year. We want to do some more widening of and resurfacing of some of the stone dusted trails. We want to pave some select sections if we get an opportunity to do so. And we will continue to hopefully replace more of the catch basin grates so that we've got the new style V shape on those as opposed to the straight ones, which can be a catcher for people on cycles if they get stuck in them. And the next one, please. The last one there is we want to continue to upgrade the George Christie Nature Trail area. There's still some concerns out there, and I know council's been involved with a lot of residents in town about the water levels in the marsh and the drainage, et cetera, and that's still causing us an issue out in the nature trails as well. So we have a fund that was established, a reserve fund that's in the town's budget for basically all the people who've contributed money over the years for purchasing a map. Well, donated money after they've taken one of the maps. So there's a reasonable amount of funding in there. And this year we're going to designate that particular funding to try and finish off the upgrading of the George Christie Nature Trail areas. Next one, and this is another one of the 4 that I said I wanted to highlight, which is to prepare and submit what we're calling a future trails plan for staff review. In the Parks, Rec, and Culture master plan that was done 3 or 4 years ago, one of the recommendations, suggestions to do options in that plan was to come up with a trails master plan. We are not going to be providing a true trails master plan in the sense of, we'll be highlighting costing and all that stuff and creating priorities. But what we would like to do is create a trails plan that would highlight some of the issues, highlight where we're at in the trails, highlight where we need future trails. So we'll be producing, we like to produce a full map showing the existing and future. And also that we'd like to put together a write-up that would come with this documentation, that would come with this plan. And hence kind of the need for it to jive with some of the other things that would be going on at the same time. We also have started the process of initiating some connection with Collingwood Youth. And we had a presentation prepared by a couple of students about 2 months ago. And we would like to get that presentation presented to council, and it's just a matter of getting the timing so that we can get the students here and present to you. The interesting part about it was, and we didn't pay them to say this by any stretch of the imagination, just so you know, but a lot of the issues that they had concerning what's good about the network and what we could improve upon in the network really does mirror what our own opinions were on the same subject. So they're remarkably astute in picking up these things, and I think that their input is definitely worth noting. The last one is we want to actively contribute to the Master Transportation Mobility Plan. We have already done that. We've sent a rather lengthy document into the EXP consultants with all of our collective input as the Trails and Active Transportation Advisory Committee. And as part of that, we also included the feedback from the youth group, because one thing that EXP did notice in their survey as a lead into the transportation plan was a lot of the age groups that were participating in the survey were kind of 40 years old and above, and they didn't have that much input from 40 years and below. So I think that they'll be happy to see some of the input that we provided from the student group. And the last one, please. We also obviously want to move Collingwood towards the gold bicycle-friendly community status. To be perfectly honest, this was one that was on our agenda for last year that we did not get done, but not an overly critical one in the sense of it wasn't required to be done last year. It is required to be done this year because the silver status that we currently have as a bicycle-friendly community has a 4-year window on it, and the 4-year window closes essentially at the end of next year, of this year, sorry. So we need to have a submission to even just to retain our silver bicycle-friendly community status. And I believe the timing is somewhere in the August, September timeframe of this year. So this one we have to make sure that we do get done in 2024. Again, the goal would be to make gold, but as a minimum, we need to retain our silver status. And the next one will be an interesting one. This is the fourth one, kind of the 4 items that really all come together. We want to actively contribute to the development of a new sidewalk bylaw. For those of you who haven't read it recently, it was written and approved in 1970. So that's a couple of years ago. And it was done obviously before we even had a trail network and before anybody had even thought about a trail network in the town of Collingwood. And in actual fact, if you just read the wording, we're not allowed to ride bikes on the trail network. So I think it's time that we try to, I've always wanted to say this, bring this bylaw into the 21st century as opposed to being in the 20th century. So certainly one of our goals is to provide all the necessary input so that hopefully we can do that this year and bring the thing up to speed with respect to e-bikes, all those other new things that are now available on the marketplace that are impacting not only the trail network, but also just the active transportation network in general. And I guess the last one, communication activities, we will continue to do that. The last one with respect to public education, I think this one's probably a little bit more important even than it might have been in the past. And I use the example of the Maple Street project with the Sharrows and the new signage. This is something new to the town of Collingwood. And one of the things that the students did highlight for us, they're having a little bit of a problem with it. Some of the drivers not quite sure what to do. Some of the drivers not sure what the signage actually means. So there is an education thing that's required there. And hopefully we can get something going on that. If we do implement on Finley Drive, the traffic calming, and put in an advisory bike lane solution there, that will be another one of those scenarios that is completely new to our municipality and will likely require some kind of process to highlight how these things should be used for both the cyclists and also for the people in vehicles. So that's kind of a snapshot. It's going to be a very active year for our Trails and Active Transportation Advisory Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It seems to me every year is pretty active for the Active Transportation and Advisory Committee. We're lucky to be able to say thank you again, Marie, to you and your committee. Next, we're going to hear from Sarah Pennell, who's the board chair of our Collingwood BIA, Downtown Collingwood BIA.
Hi, thanks so much for having us here
Thanks,
today.
Sarah.
We're going to start with that committee mandate a little bit. We bring those local business people together, property owners, commercial tenants, support from you as a municipality, and really just improve the physical aspects of downtown while promoting the economic development as well. And I do want to touch on the mandate of the Ontario BIAs. It's often overlooked or misunderstood. Our job here is to not make each business better. It's to make that downtown area a better place in which to do that business. And that is a common distinction that we really need to focus on. So our strategic plan states that the Collingwood downtown is a progressive destination that leaves a lasting impression through investing in activation, communications, future planning, and internal governance. We'll move on to some of those 2023 accomplishments. In 2023, we saw an entirely new board come together. So there was not a lot of turnover from the previous board at all. Quite proud of what we managed to accomplish with that whole new board there. We implemented that garden plan, the tourism related projects. A lot of that funding was through the federal government. We saw those new benches, those garbage cans, the permeable paving around the tree beds, which got rid of all of those wood chips that would blow everywhere. That Greetings from Collingwood mural that is in 84 here, Ontario, has been all over the internet with countless selfies and pictures taken. We're quite proud of how that turned out. The utility boxes got wrapped in that artwork from local artists. As always, Sue Nicholson is a magician with securing grant funding, and we could not accomplish what we do without that. We replaced that Seawood sign, which was probably one of the most photographed things in the downtown area for a number of years. The new sign is actually LED lit. You can change it with just a remote in your hand to do each letter at a time. It's easier to move, and it's a whole lot safer. We saw a lot of broken bulbs, which actually left a live wire in there. So if any toddlers walked around, you would get a literal shock. We wrapped all of those tree lights downtown so that they have that warm light instead of some are white lights, some are warm lights. It's just a community feeling. Brought that hope sign in and that Christmas bear, and that hope sign's going to stay out for the year. We feel it's a good message to keep in town, and it adds some light onto here 84 here, Ontario as well. As always, that event activation plan was pulled off quite well. We saw our first drone show. We had the Easter egg hunt, farmers markets, Canada Day celebrations, a local live lunch, street pianos, Fashion Week, and Halloween. Christmas season is always amazing in this town with all of those incredible decorations. The Christmas market, Santa Claus parades, and the visits with Santa and the reindeer. We also did come up with a third-party event policy. So we got approached by organizations like Pride, which take place in our downtown. And it's nice that we can have a bit of a say in how that comes together. And that policy just drives what we do in the future. And we started the strategic planning process, which is something we are continuing into 2024. The development mission, our vision statement, and we did quite a bit of work on the SWOT analysis with consultants as well. Thank you so much for allowing us the input on the official plan for how it implements the downtown area. We're quite grateful for that opportunity. The gift card program, which I will touch on a little bit as we continue its work in 2024, is going to be an ongoing thing that we continue to develop for years to come. I spoke to you all many months ago about 84 here, Ontario, and thank you so much for following through with that so quickly. We were able to see quite a bit of activation there. We turned it from that, in other words, dangerous property into that paved square with those planters and benches, and we look forward to seeing what happens with that in the future. And I'm quite pleased to say that we finalized the artist selection for the public gateway feature that you might have seen some of the construction starting. That is going to keep going into 2024 as well. And on that note, let's move on to our 2024 goals and priorities. So we are continuing to work with the town and municipality with that strategic plan. We've had a lot of input with the downtown visioning project. Thank you so much for the opportunity to contribute to that as well. And that really drives that downtown master plan. We are undertaking a new BIA strategic plan, so that downtown visioning process helps us with that. The current plan is quite outdated, and this will give us an opportunity to continue through this board's term and hopefully guide the boards in the future as well. In alignment with the new official plan, we are looking to implement a boundary realignment. So as the commercial downtown grows, we want those boundaries to grow to incorporate that. We look to kind of wrap that up by 2024 as well. And we have a lot of things happening within our district, like that proposed art center, the Terminal Point project, and the Side Launch District Public Realm project. Thank you again for the opportunity to have any input and feedback along those lines as well as they implement what we do here. So that gift card program, if you're not familiar, you can buy it online, you can buy it in the BIA office. It doesn't cost businesses anything to use it. It's essentially a gift card that you can use anywhere in the downtown area with any participating business. It just runs through like a credit card, and that can be used at your dentist office, a retail store, the nail salon, anyone who wants to contribute. Some of the restaurants are involved. It's quite a nice way. We found quite a bit of purchasing with like teacher gifts and things like that, which is lovely to see that money kind of stay back in that community. We're going to continue with that event activation plan. So those events that we touched on in 2023 are all contributing. And we do have a couple new initiatives that we're looking forward to. We don't have all the details on those yet, but stay tuned. It should be good. We do work with Parks Recreation and the Culture Department for that, to refurbish that original Seawood sign. And we can use that once it's refurbished as temporary pop-ups at events around town. Instead of leaving it out all the time where it was getting damaged and things were getting stolen from it, it can be moved around when it's refurbished. We're continuing to activate that space at 84 here, Ontario. We have a couple ideas for how that's going to play out this year. Pretty excited about what's coming there. And again, with Parks, Recreation, and Culture, we're bringing back art on the street. That's those art chairs and those banners that you see around town. And those art chairs do get auctioned off at the last farmers market of the year as well. We're going to continue wrapping the rest of those tree lights, and we are keeping those lights on all year long. It feels like it just kind of elevates the entire experience downtown. As always, Sue is constantly seeking out grant funding, and most of the applications she submits do get followed through on, which is fantastic. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without those grants. That Gateway Public Art Project at First Street in here, Ontario. Very, very excited to see it coming together. The foundation's been poured. It's curing for another few weeks. And that's going to get underway pretty quickly, which is quite exciting. That was a lot of work in the process, and really looking forward to seeing it come together. And that CRM platform is something that we're continuing to work on, which just, it allows like member engagement, a lot of data collection, so we can just guide where we go in the future from what our members want. And I would actually just really like to thank as well our general manager, Sue Nicholson, who has provided countless guidance to all of us, and Sam Ball, who is our promotions coordinator, and also Sue's right-hand guy. Her husband, Bill, is constantly thought of as paid staff. He's not, he's a volunteer. Or told, I guess. He shows up countlessly. He's at the Santa all the time. He's everywhere. And I just think he deserves a thank you as well. So on that note, thank you so much for having us. And if you have any questions at all, ever reach out.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We hear your energy and enthusiasm that I'm sure is reflective of your new board. So we're just so appreciative. Our downtown is important to our community, and I'm happy to see your involvement in our initiatives that are also this year as we more and more try to connect our waterfront to our downtown.
That is definitely on our list.
Right, between the public realm space and the shipyards and the Terminals Point project. These are going to be, and also your new art installation. These will all be things to expand and make our downtown great. Well, and also the proposed art project or art center, as you mentioned. So thank you for participating in all that you guys do.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Now we're going to hear from Donna Mansfield, who is the vice chair of our Collingwood Library Board.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Our library, like all others in Ontario, is established under the Public Libraries Act. This legislation outlines the library's overall mandate, which is to deliver programs and services that reflect the needs of our community. The board provides governance, oversight, leadership to support staff in meeting the needs of those who live in Collingwood. So the first slide, the accomplishments of 2023. It was an inaugural year for the new board, who went through a detailed onboarding process to understand our roles and responsibilities, along with the successes and challenges faced by our library staff. Board and staff are working through the final pieces of our current strategic plan. In 2023, we continue to expand our electronic collection with 3 new online resources: Canopy, BBC Landmark, and Cloud Library. Spearheaded by Fleet and Facilities, our facility remains accessible with the installation of the new doors and accessibility buttons. We also introduced a larger, quiet study area to create more versatility within our existing space. One of the key elements of the board's role is governance oversight through the development and review of policies. This work continued last year, introducing 3 new policies: CEO succession plan, community partnerships, and the adoption of the Municipal Code of Conduct. During the course of the year, the board had worked with the CEO to refine statistical and financial reporting, provide more information on circulation, room rentals, and a better understanding of monthly expenditures. And our goals for this year. Looking at 2024, our board has a big year planned. We will continue engaging in learning opportunities as they become available and maintain strong governance practices through ongoing policy review. The board will be working with the CEO to develop 2 new plans for our library: a capital project plan and a continuity of operations plan. Both will contribute to maintaining innovative projects and service levels that our community has come to expect. We are undertaking a strategic planning process which will guide our library projects and initiatives over the next 4 years. Our current plan was developed during the pandemic, so staff and board members are looking forward to being out in the community gathering feedback from residents. We are eager to talk about our library services and how the library can best serve our community in 2024. Thank you for taking the time to hear from the board, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you. You've got a very active board, and I love seeing all the activities and programming coming out of,
Yeah.
the
Yeah, we
library.
we really do. I was
Yeah.
on the board years ago, and it's changed so much. Now it's more, that community hub has come to fruition for sure. So
Yeah, that's what it is, a
Yes.
community hub. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to hear about our Committee of Adjustment and Property Standards Appeal Committee. And for this, we're going to hear from the Secretary Treasurer, Shaylin Whitehead. Welcome.
Hello, how are you today?
Thanks.
There we go. Okay, so quickly, first I'll just go over the Committee of Adjustment mandate with you. So the Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body, and it hears applications for minor variances and consent to sever properties. Minor variance applications are required under Section 45 of the Planning Act, where a proposal cannot meet the intent of the zoning bylaw. They're also required for the enlargement or extension of a building or structure that is legally non-conforming, or for the expansion of a non-conforming use. Applications for consent fall under Section 53 of the Planning Act. So quickly, I'll just go over the 2023 accomplishments with you for the Committee of Adjustment. So our goal was to conduct open public meetings that encourage community and stakeholder participation. We conducted fair, timely, consistent, and thorough review and decisions on 10 minor variance incidental applications, 7 full minor variance applications, and 9 consent applications over the year. For 2024, our goals and priorities are simply to continue to conduct fair, timely, and thorough review of all applications, including on-site visits, and continue to conduct open public meetings that encourage community and stakeholder participation. Next, I'll quickly go over a review of the Property Standards Appeal Committee, go over the committee mandate with that. The Committee of Adjustment also acts as the Property Standards Appeal Committee, which is also a quasi-judicial tribunal that hears appeals made to a property standards order that has been issued by a property standards officer of the town of Collingwood. The committee must hear all appeals and has the authority to confirm, modify, or rescind a property standards order, or to extend the time for complying. These hearings are governed by the Statutory Powers and Procedures Act, RSO 1990, CS 22, the SPPA. In 2023, we conducted fair, timely, consistent, and thorough review and decisions on 2 property standards appeals, as well as provided orientation and training to new and returning committee members that addresses the roles and responsibilities of committee members, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and proper appeal procedures, including the statutory powers of the committee. For 2024, our goals for the Property Standards Appeal Committee include developing rules of procedure for the Property Standards Committee, continuing to ensure procedural fairness during all hearings, and providing further training on the roles and responsibilities of committee members, the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and proper appeal procedures, including the statutory powers of the committee. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your summary and your hard work on this.
Thanks. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, we're going to hear from Jack Vanderkooy, who is our acting chair of our Affordable Housing Task Force.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members and staff and other volunteers. You know, it's so good to be part of this community when we see the volunteer activities that take place. And so I'm very happy to report on the Affordable Housing Task Force. We're not a committee, nor are we a board. So I hope we still fit. But
you're always welcome.
Thank you. 2023 was a busy year again for the task force, which has been in existence for about 3 years. And the main accomplishment, of course, was the fact that we were able to bring accessory dwelling unit program into this community. And this is the first of its kind in Ontario, and it's recognized by CMHC as among the first in Canada, with concierge service, financial grants, and pre-approved designs to expedite timelines and get more rental units built quicker. And the interesting statistic here is that the building department issued 20 permits for ADUs in 2023, and that's more than doubling the 8 that were issued in 2022. And a big credit for this has to go to our previous housing coordinator, Jen Ray. She was very instrumental, of course, as well as Summer and other staff members. But we saw a lot of hard work making this possible. Also, the task force was an elevated stakeholder in the preparation of the fully approved and professionally authored costed and prioritized affordable housing master plan. And we achieved this milestone ahead of our neighboring municipalities. If you're paying attention, you know that most municipalities are engaging in an affordable housing master plan because affordable housing is an issue for every community in this area, not just Collingwood. And so we're very proud that we were able to be the first out of the gate with this affordable housing master plan. And I believe it's a great working document as we move forward in our community to bring housing availability to everyone. Next slide, please. In 2023, we also provided comments to the new official plan, and that replaces the standalone commercial designations with a strategic system of mixed-use nodes and corridors along arterial roads to promote housing growth in key service locations, increasing the allowable building heights across designations in a way that is sensitive to small town or smaller urban context, transitions away from the traditional density calculations to a floor space index approach for high-rise building types, and includes a full suite of affordable housing supportive policies. Next slide, please. We also were advocating for the shift in public awareness and commitment to being part of the solution, which has gained traction in the community, as seen through the voluntary inclusion of affordable units and rough-tin accessory dwelling units in 3 major developments in town. In addition, the Ontario Land Tribunal settlement resulted in a committed $1 million financial contribution to the town from John Wilton of Sunvale Homes. And as per the settlement terms, these funds are to be used for affordable housing initiatives and provided at the closing at the sales of these units. And we hope that that will happen soon. In addition to this, I'm very proud to say that the town, and very thankful that the town has included, in addition to the affordable housing reserve fund every year for the past 3 years, as basically 1% of revenues from real estate property taxes. And again, that fund is building up to the point where it will have a significant impact on being able to provide more affordable housing in our community. Next slide, please. For 2024, because we've accomplished the goals that we had set out for 2023, mainly the master plan, the terms of reference are now being updated. And as such, it's somewhat premature to share our goals for 2024. But in the meantime, we continue to work on several priorities. First of all, in partnership with staff, developing the recommended criteria for seed funding that Council has set aside in their 2024 budget to support a not-for-profit organization that could act as an avenue to build and utilize community wealth and influence local investment, local ownership of land and property, and local spending by anchor institutions. An expressions of interest document will be coming out soon, inviting organizations to apply for this funding. Also, one of our goals for this year and probably for future years will be to provide a forum for community discussion education and continuing into a future public education and engagement campaign as an elevated stakeholder. And we really see this as one of our primary roles as being, there's still, we're surprised at how much misinformation is in our community about housing and about affordable housing in particular. And I think our goal will be to bring that to the forefront, provide education, provide community forums for discussion and opportunities just to learn. And to share what we've learned in the last 3 years with our community members. And so to that point, we're looking forward to seeing our new terms of reference. Once we have the new terms of reference, we will be looking for new members on the task force, hopefully from a wide range of expertise. Business people, lived experience folks, people that are like me, semi-retired, but people that can actually contribute to the conversation and also help us understand what the needs are and how to better meet them. So I want to thank the staff that are involved. I want to thank Summer. She's been a great participant. I want to thank our council members that are part. Deputy Mayor Fryer, Councillor Doherty, and Councillor Ring have been part of our every meeting, and it's amazing how we have great attendance at our meetings and the contributions that we get from these members. And of course, our new housing development coordinator, Claire, she's kind of hiding in the background there, but she's taken over from Jen Ray. And again, thank you to the town for committing to this position and again, making affordable housing something that we can offer to our community, and that we truly can be a community that has housing for everyone. That's our goal. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Jack. It's so wonderful what your committee does, or your task force, I guess. And I was glad you highlighted the seed funding to establish the not-for-profits, because I noticed in the announcements last week, the federal government's promising lots of funds for not-profits and co-ops. So we'll all be eagerly awaiting tomorrow's budget. Thank you. Okay, so that is, I'm going to read, those are our 8 that we're having presented to us today. So I'll just read in the recommendation now. That staff report C 2024-03, annual report of boards and advisory committees, be received for information. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Houston and Councillor Doherty. Any comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who attended to watch this part of the proceedings today. I know it'll be a little busy over the next few minutes as the room clears, but I'll just take the opportunity to start to read in the always lengthy in-camera motion. So the recommendation is, whereas the clerk hereby concurs, the reasons for the in-camera session have been duly reviewed and considered, and the matters are authorized under the exception provisions to conduct a closed session in accordance with the Municipal Act prior to proceeding into closed session. Therefore, be it resolved, this council proceeds in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the town or a local board, and the receiving of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. We have one item listed for our in-camera discussion today. It is the Huntingwood East OLT, and that's the Ontario Land Tribunal appeal. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Baines, Councillor Potts. Any comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. So at this point, we'll move into the in-camera part of the meeting as soon as the room clears. Thank you.
Just for policy direction. So I'm moving trains, but put that written into side now. Yeah.
I'm looking for a motion to rise from in camera. Councillor Ring, seconded by Councillor Perry. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. I'm going to read in, this is now item 6 on our agenda, the motion that's before us today on the water treatment plant expansion. And this is with respect to the terms with New Tecumseh. The recommendation is as follows. Whereas the town of Collingwood and the town of New Tecumseh have an agreement for the long-term supply of water from the Raymond A. Barker water treatment plant to the New Tecumseh pipeline, and whereas New Tecumseh is entitled to withdraw from the expansion agreement if the lowest qualified tender price for the initial expansion exceeded the preliminary budget by 10%, which the tender price has. And whereas the town of New Tecumseh has agreed to continue with the expansion agreement, including the planned 63% of the costs, if the following mutually beneficial criteria are met. Be it resolved that from Collingwood's remaining water plant capacity, 250 cubic meters a day will be made available to the town of New Tecumseh for immediate allocation, with a further supply of 150 cubic meters a day within the next 12 calendar months, with both quantities being made available subject only to the technical capabilities of the plant. And further, that the town of Collingwood, together with New Tecumseh, will participate in the discussion and allocation of an interim water solution after the review is completed by AECOM in October 2024, subject to proportional cost sharing and a minimum of 50% of additional interim capacity directed to the town of New Tecumseh. And further, that should the town of New Tecumseh need an interim water solution, the town of Collingwood commits to moving forward with this project, with Collingwood paying its proportionate share to which it agrees. And further, that upon the commissioning of the anticipated New Tecumseh Wells optimization project, should excess cubes from the original New Tecumseh plan, which is 3,137 cubic meters, be found, there will be a return to Collingwood of 200 cubic meters a day, unless Collingwood has access to that same amount or more of interim capacity over the current 31,140 cubic meters per day. And further, that the town of Collingwood collaborate with the town of New Tecumseh to continue to actively pursue an expectation of provincial or other order of government funding through infrastructure programs to assist with this capital investment partnership. And that's moved by Councillor Jeffrey and seconded by Councillor Ring. And I'll open it up for comments and questions. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. And just briefly, very supportive of the motion. It's been a long process, and it's had to undertake a fair bit of in-camera work. And I think that's to be expected with the difficult task of coming to an agreement with a major partner and such. So I'm pleased that we're moving ahead and putting it into the public realm really now, and we'll be able to provide an awful lot more detail as we proceed. And I look forward to working cooperatively with New Tecumseth for these coming years. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to comment or ask a question? Okay, well, I'm just going to say a few words because I've been thinking about this on the weekend in between playing with my grandson, which was more fun than thinking about this. Confession. Okay. Today, we have an opportunity to vote on moving forward with our water treatment plant expansion, which will support all of the other things we want and need for our community. However, as we know, this opportunity will not just benefit the community for the term of this council, but rather for many decades into the future. It's not often that a council has a chance to make a decision on something that will clearly have an impact for generations. And I certainly want to start by thanking our CAO and all of our excellent staff for their hard work in bringing this project along over the last several years to the point where we can vote on the start of construction today. I'll be the first to say this hasn't been an easy road over the last year. And as we've sorted our way to the best way to move forward with this project, as you know, I've pursued and met with cabinet ministers at the province, in many locations and forums. I was, and some of you also were at the AMO conference in London last summer. And I was at Treasurer Bethan Falvey's budget meetings in Barrie a few months ago, at the Roma conference in January with the infrastructure minister, Surma. And of course, the Premier, I was happy, of course, to have him join my office last month, where I spent quite a bit of time going over what this project meant to Collingwood, New Tecumseth, and the other municipalities. And I know that our MPP Saunderson is tired of me talking to him about the water plant, and he'll be glad with the end of this vote today. And I confess that I even cornered him in the cloakroom at the mayor's annual levy in January to talk about this. He almost ran out ahead, but I got him. However, because of all of this work and the work of our staff and all the support from council, I'm pleased to say we now have an expectation of a contribution from the provincial infrastructure programs. In addition, as you know, I convened a task force of our development community and representatives of other municipalities and the county of Simcoe to not only review the drawings for the expansion and the projected costs, the alternatives, but the various funding models. We met numerous times, and I thank everyone who participated in all of those meetings. I also like to thank Mayor Richard Norcross of New Tecumseth. He and I have each other's cell phone numbers on speed dial. We talked openly, confidentially, and regularly to each other as we've moved through the minefields of the last year. New Tecumseth, of course, is our partner in this project, contributing 63% of the capital costs of the first phase. Council, you've been instrumental on this journey. I know it seems at times it was an impossible task that we would ever get to the stage we're at today. I want to thank you for your instrumental involvement and support. So with that, I'll bring this matter to a vote. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. And thank you so much, everyone. Yes, thank God. Oh. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is 7.1. It's a bylaw. The recommendation is that bylaw number 2024-035, being a bylaw to authorize the award and execution of the Raymond A. Barker Water Treatment Plant expansion tender, be enacted and passed this 15th day of April, 2024. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Bain, seconded by Councillor Ring. Any comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And lastly, a confirmatory bylaw, the bylaw number 2024-034, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meeting of council held April 15, 2024, be enacted and passed this 15th day of April, 2024. And a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Houston, seconded by Councillor Perry. All those in favor, and that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, I think Councillor Potts has the adjournment motion. All those in favor? No, he didn't cheat. I saw it. Okay, thank you, everyone.